Let's change gears here. There was a troubling story that popped up Thursday night, and a lot of things happened in 48 hours. The end result is that Matt Araiza, the Bills punter, 6th-round pick, 180th overall out of San Diego State University, was released by the team on Saturday after the Los Angeles Times reported on Thursday that a federal civil lawsuit had been filed against Araiza and 2 others with allegations of gang rape. And the allegations are horrifying. And at the end of the day, and this is the way that it was explained by Brandon Beane, the general manager of the Bills, when he met with reporters on Saturday night, they're not in a position to know what happened. And this is sufficiently serious that they think it's in the best interests of Matt Araiza to go and focus on that and not focus on football. This is bigger than football. He needs to get this taken care of. The lawsuit, there's a criminal investigation, and look, that's the best possible way to put it. Chris, I think at a more basic level, when you look at everything they went through last week,
right,
from the standpoint of what are we going to do, how are we going to handle this,
that's
we're
right.
having meetings.
Right.
Brandon Beane talked about how Sean McDermott spent a lot of the day when he's getting ready for a preseason game dealing with this issue.
Cut the cord.
It's the punter.
That's right.
It's not Josh Allen.
Right.
It's not Stephon Diggs. It's not a key player on the team. It's one of the most interchangeable pieces of a football machine. Other than long snapper or holder, the supply of punters outweighs the demand. It's very easy to pop one out and put another one back in. You're not part of that dance with the 10 other guys, and it all has to be in perfect synchronization. It's one guy, one job. It's not worth the headache. And it's bigger than distraction, because distraction gets thrown around by coaches who just don't want to deal with certain players. This became a full-blown headache for the Bills. Self-inflicted, because they knew about this when they cut their other punter and gave the job to Araiza. But still, it got to the point where it's too big of a headache, and they made the only decision they could. We don't know what happened. We just have to move on. And we can couch it as we're letting this guy focus on something that's far more important. But from a football team perspective, it's a no-brainer. We move on from a punter because there are plenty of other punters out there.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, they've obviously knew about this for a little bit, but didn't know about it when they drafted the kid. I think that's been made clear. I would have a hard time thinking they did, at least. That group up there, just knowing McDermott, Brandon Beane, being around them a little bit. You know, again, it's a team that kind of holds their players to a pretty high standard. I'd be shocked if they knew about this and then drafted the guy. Plus, I'd go, like, to your point here, and just to where we are in the Buffalo Bills lifeline with Sean McDermott as the head coach, why would they even want to flirt with this? They're a team that we know from the end of last season was in one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. And here we are, you know, a few weeks before the season, and they still are the favorite. So this is not something where I think they were like, you know, let's take a chance here with this. Absolutely not. You know, and again, I think you said it right. For the headache, you know, for where they are as a football team, it kind of dominated the news coverage. It's not good to be the main topic for your team to be answering after you're gonna go play the Super Bowl champs and the LA Rams. And then also just the way it looks for the NFL. Hey, it's the first game kickoff. Hey, and they got a guy that's got rape accusations. Yeah, it's not a good look for anybody. So I think that was a no-brainer to end that relationship right there and let the kid go figure out his life problems.
And the key was there was nothing the NFL could do about it because it was an alleged incident that occurred before Araiza was drafted. No ability under the personal conduct policy to do anything. Suspend him without pay at the end of the criminal process or put him on the commissioner exempt list. It doesn't fall under the personal conduct policy at all. So the only thing that could have happened was the Bills part ways with him, and that's exactly what they did. You mentioned Brandon Beane. Press conference with Beane and McDermott Saturday night with local reporters. Here's what Beane had to say about when the Bills learned about the incident allegedly involving Matt Araiza.
I know it's a question of when did we hear this or what was the timeline. Late July, from her representative spoke to Catherine and, you know, laid out some of the things that they were, you know, accusing Matt and others of. And at that time, our process, we tried to be thorough and thoughtful and not rush to judgment. And I would say it's not easy. You're trying to put facts around a legal situation, sometimes with limited information. We did not know about this, and the league did not know about this. And, I know people are out there trying to find out. There's no one. We've reached out to, I can tell you, double-digit teams at this point, and no one had anything on this. These names were sealed, wherever the investigation was at that point, John. Yes, if we had this, and we get things like this from guys, you know how important the character and the culture is to Sean and me. And anything that would have been lingering, that would have been off our board.
There were reports over the weekend that multiple teams did know about the incident generally, and I think for someone like a punter or a kicker, frankly, that's enough to get a guy pulled off the board. There's too many other guys out there that you can find to do the job, to take any chance whatsoever, especially with a draft pick. 180, 19 higher than the pick that was used in 2001 to get Tom Brady. This was not, hey, we just signed this guy as an undrafted free agent. This was a draft pick that was utilized. And Chris, I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't move more quickly. At one point, Brandon Beane mentioned Catherine. Catherine is their in-house counsel who was alerted in late July by the alleged victim's lawyer to the situation. And either she didn't apply the appropriate foresight as to how this would play out, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how this is going to play out. On the criminal side and the civil side can commence at any time, and a civil lawsuit was surely inevitable. Either she didn't lay it out in a way that got the attention of the football people, or the football people heard it and ignored it. And maybe they decided, let's just see what happens. We're not going to throw this guy overboard.
That's right.
Until the pot boils over. If the pot boils over, then we'll just move on. I feel like that's kind of what they did. Whether they did it deliberately or just kind of inadvertently, I think they decided we're going to stay the course. It's a 6th-round pick. We're not just going to throw a 6th-round pick out the door. We don't know what happened. We're just going to sit and wait and see what transpires. And if the heat gets too hot, we just move on. Yeah. And that's exactly how it played out.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think, it's, again, these are human beings. This isn't just like, a bag of chips on the shelf to the degree. And I understand that I'm not trying to be insensitive to, the young lady or the woman who's, accusing Matt Araiza of all this situation. I'm not. But I'm saying just from the Bills standpoint of, late July. Wait, we've gotten to know this kid a little bit, for a few months. Oh, wait, there's these allegations. You do wait to hear a little bit of the facts or what's going on. What if it gets to those allegations and then 10 days later you just hear, he was in the house that this happened. He wasn't actually a part of it. So you do have to gather some facts a little bit. You don't just throw a guy that you've, made a relationship with three months in and drafted, to your point, and just go, wait, someone called, made allegations, you're out of here. See ya. No matter how serious they are. So I do think there is some of that. And, maybe did they drag their feet as it goes on a little bit because he's a great punter and he's got a nickname, the punt god? Maybe. But I think, like, to your point, when it got to a point when they went, whoa, maybe we've seen enough here to know that this is more than just like, whoa, he was just in the house or, somewhere as a innocent bystander. He was actually involved and this is about to get serious. Then they end the relationship the right way, at least. And I don't know. Again, maybe it went on a few weeks too long, but either way, at least they did it and it's done with now.
It became clear the direction in which this was headed Friday night when Araiza didn't punt in the preseason finale against the Panthers, and he wasn't at practice on Saturday. He issued a statement during the game through his agent, Joe Linta, that the facts of the incident are not what they are portrayed in the lawsuit or in the press. I look forward to quickly setting the record straight. Linta did not have a comment in the aftermath of the team's decision to release Araiza. The NFLPA had no comment either. I think theoretically there could be some sort of pushback because this wasn't a termination due to football merit. It was clearly unrelated. But somebody I talked to over the weekend said, when you have a player with a non-guaranteed contract, they can move on for any reason they want, and they do, especially at the interchangeable positions. The most interchangeable: punter, kicker, long snapper, holder, and the holder is usually the punter or the backup quarterback. It's easy to just move on, and that's what they chose to do. But Chris, a deeper point here, and this may be something that we address further in the coming days. We talked about it last week. The weight of the expectations currently on the Buffalo Bills. I can't help but wonder whether that factored into whatever short-circuited in this process, because they're under a lot of pressure. Whether it's self-imposed, whether it's fan/media imposed, or whether it's ownership imposed. Because we've seen it with other teams, specifically John Fox with the Denver Broncos. Sometimes it's worse to be on the porch knocking on the door than to be out in the weeds somewhere at 500, because you tantalize the ownership when you get close and you fail to punch it in. And you have to wonder at what point, if you're Brandon Beane or Sean McDermott, you have to wonder at what point will ownership say, have these guys taken this great team as far as they can? And again, I don't know that any of this is happening, but I think these are reasonable conclusions to draw from the circumstances. I don't know why so many people have basically penciled in the Bills to get to the Super Bowl when you look at that murderer's row of contenders in the AFC, but the pressure is all on them. And they've been that shortlist favorite for a couple of years now. And it could be that just having that added stress and pressure contributed to this unforced error that came down to them cutting a punter they would have kept to keep the guy that they ended up cutting, even though they knew when they cut Matt Hawk about the allegations against Matt Araiza. And so just keep an eye on that, because it's always tough to be the front runner.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
We've never seen a front runner with this many people, this many other teams breathing down their neck.
Well, yeah, I mean, but geez, I mean, where was Buffalo before this? Nowhere for like 15 years? I mean, I don't know how ownership wouldn't be thrilled with this group. They're top-notch. They're detailed. John Fox, yeah, sure. You know, I understand that comparison to a degree, but John Fox was a defensive coach with Jack Del Rio, and their defense stunk with all this talent they had on it, and Peyton Manning and company was carrying the team. They went to the Super Bowl that year with two great defensive minds, and they were, I think 19th or 20th in football in overall defense. So that's where I'm sure they didn't earn their, John Elway probably was like, wow, I'm glad I got you to coach the top 20 defense in football, and I got Peyton Manning over here just tearing things up. You know, that's not the case with this. I don't know how you couldn't be happier with this group. Now, there's pressure, you're right, and maybe that pressure led them to hold on to this guy a little too long. I don't doubt that. But as I'll go back to, I think it's hard to just throw human beings overboard right when you find something out and just go, well, all right, oh, their lawyer called, let's cut them. Boom, right there. No, they let, some time go on. I'm sure they did do their due diligence. And then when they realized
they didn't talk to the lawyer. They didn't get the full story. That's what the lawyer claimed.
Okay, yeah. So they messed up. I'm not mad at that. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you there. They obviously, let this go on maybe a little too long. There's no doubt about it. But man, as far as the other stuff, there's pressure. They're at the top of the mountain, but damn, they were nowhere near the mountain. They were down in the bottom drinking out of the lake right before that. Now they're one of the teams that, they're one of the best in the AFC, and it's not easy either, dealing with an all-time quarterback and an all-time coach that they got to get through to get to the Super Bowl, and they just haven't been able to conquer them yet.
And look, I don't know if the pressure's coming from the top of the organization, but I know this, after what happened the past few days, fair to say the top of the organization is paying a little more attention
I would think so.
Their key employees are doing than previously. So it's only going to add to this sense of pressure and expectation, self-imposed, external, or from the people above on the hierarchy who can decide these guys have taken us as far as we can. It's time to find someone else to get us over the hump. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.